All right, folks, welcome back to the TNT show. We just had the college football playoff rankings drop last night, so we're going to go ahead and break off into that. Obviously, it's from what I saw, we had some minor, not necessarily minor. There was a few changes, shifts per se, in this bracket that we're about to get into.
Yeah,
And
that's some new teams.
it's yeah, got some new teams in there. Top four looks the same, of course, because they all won their games. So outside of that, there was, like I said, some shifts. So going into this last couple of games in the conference championship, it's definitely going to be chaos.
Yeah,
So
I agree. Obviously, some teams, they're in a good spot. Notre Dame, they don't play any. Who do they? I don't even know who they played the last game, but they're pretty much locked in. They don't play in a conference, so they don't play for a conference title. So they're fine. SMU, obviously, they'll play. I would assume Miami in the ACC championship.
yeah,
Penn State, they're fine. They're not going to play in the Big Ten championship.
exactly.
Indiana, they're fine. They're not playing in the Big Ten championship. There's four Big Ten teams here. Did not know that.
Yeah, they got four teams in there.
So, honestly, they're fine unless they just somehow get beat. Um, Obviously, like I said, we got some new faces. We got SMU and we got Arizona State. And I guess you could throw Tennessee's back in here. Um, I so far from what I can see, I would say the Indiana Penn State, they're probably in a pretty good.
Position.
Yeah, until they probably get to the semifinals where they probably have to play Texas. I don't know if SMU would be enough to beat Texas.
You think SMU beat Notre Dame?
I don't know. I feel like Notre Dame's a pretty good team, but aside from Texas A&M at the beginning of the year, who has Notre Dame played? That's a serious question. I really don't know.
No, they really honestly have not. They've played some ACC teams, but the ACC is like a lot more top heavy. Like they didn't play SMU, obviously. They didn't play Miami. Like they didn't play like some of the better teams in the ACC. Like of course Clemson. They didn't play any of those guys that are like kind of sitting more towards the top. They played a
Okay.
lot of the not so great teams.
Okay. SMU, they got beat by BYU at the beginning of the year. Aside from that, they've played some pretty solid teams. Not high level teams, but I think they beat Louisville. Let me see. Let me pull up a.
Outside of that, just looking at this bracket alone, um,
Ohio State's in a pretty good spot, but yeah, obviously the top four aren't going to change here. We still got Oregon, Texas, Miami, Boise. Boise State's pretty much a lock at four, in my opinion. I don't think anybody's going to jump them. I don't even think the Big 12 champion's going to jump them.
yeah, they've pretty much. You can say they have a case, but at the same time, I think if somebody were to jump them, I wouldn't be upset about it because they're playing in the Mountain West. It's not really a super tough conference outside of their one loss, which was to the number one team in the country at the beginning of the season. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Then again, they don't. Yeah, their strength of schedules not that great. Other than, like you said, they play Oregon, but I think that's about it.
that's really the only thing that's, I guess, in a sense, helping them because they lost to the number one team in the country by 3. Um, if the playoffs were to start today, I don't think Boise's in a super favorable
Since
part of the
since
bracket.
then, they have not played a ranked team.
Yeah. So it's that's neither here nor there. I mean, you still love to see. I just want to see Ashton Genty in the playoffs. To be honest with you,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
again,
think are the awards before that?
uh, I think they are.
I think they are too. I was just curious. I was just kind of curious to see, like, say for instance, he ran for 200 yards on Ohio State. You know, that would pretty much say, okay, this guy is the real deal. I mean, it's
I
easy to
mean,
run for 200 yards against the
I
teams that
mean,
he's playing.
he ran on 200 yards against Oregon, so I think if he can do it to Oregon, he can do it to Ohio State. I'm gonna just say that.
Could he do it again?
I think so, yeah. Even if
Because
they game plan more for it, I still think he probably you're not going to
Oregon's in a
contain him
tough
every.
spot where they are. They are in a
Yeah,
tough spot because they got to play the win. If it started today, obviously Oregon would play the winner of Georgia and Tennessee. That's a tough task.
yeah, because those are two pretty good defenses, and offensively, I think it's more favorable for Oregon against Tennessee, but against Georgia, Georgia's one of those streaky teams, so you never really know what you're going to get with them.
Yeah.
Against Oregon, I don't know. Oregon might, Oregon could mess around and blow them out. I don't know.
Then again,
Um,
this is the same Georgia team that blew out Tennessee and Texas.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, the thing about that, like I said, if it started today, it's tough to beat the same team twice. I think Tennessee would come with a different type of game plan if they had to play Georgia again, which obviously I think based on how this bracket looks right now, it's going to look completely different in 2 weeks or
Do
whenever
you
the
think
final one
Arizona
drops.
State would beat Ohio State? Let's run down the list here. Do you think Arizona State would beat Ohio State?
Personally, no, I don't.
I agree. I don't think so either. Just because Arizona State, I don't think they have a great defense, and I don't know if they'd be able to slow Ohio State down.
Yeah,
And
Ohio
Ohio
State
State just
is,
handled Indiana pretty. The score was a lot worse, Obviously, Indiana made a lot of mistakes, but I don't think Arizona State. I don't know if their defense would be able to slow down Ohio State in their run game.
well, honestly, I don't think so either because even look at Oregon. Look at that Oregon Ohio State game tells you everything you need to know because even Oregon couldn't really contain them like that. Ohio State really lost that game for themselves. Like Oregon beat them, but Ohio State had a chance at the end. They just fumbled the clock. So
Yep.
I don't think Arizona State could play 4 quarters with that Ohio State offense or that defense. The defense is I think the defense would hold Arizona State in check and defensively they wouldn't be able to stop all the explosive plays that Ohio State would be making.
Yeah. Plus, they have a pretty good defense.
Yeah. So Tennessee,
I'm looking at
Georgia.
their schedule. I mean, they're giving up some points.
All I like is it's the Big 12. When you play in the Big 12, it's a and they're a Pac-12 team too. So a Pac-12 team going into the Big 12 is basically the same thing because it's not a whole lot of defense being played. It's a lot of explosive plays, a lot of points scored, a lot of shootouts, like stuff like that.
And, like you said, going to the Tennessee Georgia game, it's hard to beat somebody twice. As far as Tennessee goes, though, their offense just isn't there. Aside from Dylan Sampson, they kind of struggle offensively.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
obviously, Georgia already knows the game plan: stop the run.
if they were to get another crack at Georgia, I think you just go look at your film from the first time you played them and see what you could do differently.
Yeah, what didn't work and what was working.
Yeah.
I think Georgia would beat them again. I just don't. Tennessee's offensively, I don't know if it's there.
Honestly,
But
no, it's not. Because they've consistently come out and started really slow, which again, as Georgia proved the first time, you cannot come out slow against a team like Georgia because they'll run it up.
yep, So personally, yeah, I would lean Georgia there. I think they'd beat Tennessee again. Indiana, Penn State. Honestly, I don't know.
I'd probably say Penn State because Penn State's closer to Ohio State than Indiana is, and I think Penn State has a really great defense offensively. Yeah, they have some inconsistencies, but I think that game would kind of go about how the Ohio State game did. Their defense, I think, would overwhelm Indiana's offense.
Yeah, Indiana just couldn't make mistakes. I mean, they let 14 points come off of special teams.
Exactly.
So if that doesn't happen, they could have hung in there with Ohio State. I don't know.
I still don't think so,
I
but
honestly, I'd probably lean a little bit more Indiana there, just for the simple fact of Penn State tends to choke in big games.
this is the same Indiana team that quite literally has not played anybody all season until they got clapped by Ohio State. There's absolutely no way you would lean more towards Indiana than you would Penn State. That's crazy.
I would. I'd lean a little bit more Indiana. They made mistakes. That's kind of why they got beat. You let a you let a punt return and turn for a touchdown, and then they blocked your punt and then
Yeah, but
scored.
we're not gonna act like Ohio State's defense wasn't containing them outside of that first touchdown drive. Outside of that
Yeah,
first touchdown drive, they quite literally did not do anything. And you add in the mistakes with that. We're not gonna act like it was just all the mistakes that got them blown out. Because you got to
uh,
think they scored like 35, so 21 of those points came because their offense couldn't do anything and their defense was on the field too much.
yeah. You kind of seen what Indiana was going to kind of look like. You kind of got a little bit of a taste when they played Michigan, and they kind of struggled. They only won by 5 points.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I think that would be a pretty good game. Like you said, probably you might see the same result. And then SMU and Notre Dame. I personally, Notre Dame would probably be. I think it'd be the same thing like you just said. I think Notre Dame would just overwhelm SMU a little bit, but then again, I don't know. I
I
haven't
was
seen SMU play.
I was gonna say I'd probably differ from that just because SMU has I wouldn't necessarily say they've played a lot of really good teams, but if you look at who Notre Dame has played versus who SMU has played, I think you probably roll personally me I probably roll more SMU just because honestly I don't know. I couldn't even tell you right now.
Let's
I'm
see.
trying to think why,
They
but
blew out Pitt. They beat them by 20.
which is a
They
ranked
beat
team.
Louisville. They were ranked at the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and they lost to BYU by 3 points. Other
Yeah.
than that, they've kind of been realistically they struggled with Duke. They beat them in overtime. But I mean, they've been winning by at least 10 to 15 points a game.
And Notre Dame played Army, Navy, and some
Both
ACC
ranked
opponent and
teams.
some weak ACC opponents.
Let's go look. So they played, yeah, they beat Army. They scored 50. They beat Virginia. Blew out Florida State, but they're terrible. Blew out Navy. Beat Georgia Tech. Beat Stanford. Won by 10 against Louisville. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Got beat by Northern Illinois, second game. But yeah, I mean, it's apples to apples. They really haven't played anybody very good. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like you said, and it's like we said last week. Every time Notre Dame's in the spotlight, it's the same thing year in and year out. They'll get exposed.
If this matchup were to stay the same, I'd probably roll SMU just because
I'd probably roll Notre Dame just because of kind of what I said. I think they might be a little bit too much for SMU. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen SMU play. I have
Well,
watched Notre Dame play a few times.
with Notre Dame, you really just got to contain their run game. I mean, that pretty much is what helps them open up their offense. Because if Riley Leonard can't really, run the football how he wants to, or their running backs aren't running the football how they want to, then they become one dimensional. Any one dimensional team is easier to beat than somebody that can hurt you both through the air and on the ground.
Yeah. I don't think either one of them would beat Texas
Probably not.
personally.
Probably not.
I either one, Indiana or Penn State. I think either one of them would beat Miami. Miami just doesn't play defense,
Yeah, Miami's defense is just too bad. That they'd have to go score for score and not make a mistake.
and versus a good defense, we've seen what happened when they played Georgia Tech. That they're if you can stop Miami, at least you're going to have to stop them more than once because obviously they're probably going to score.
I would probably say Penn State has a better shot than Miami does. Not Miami. Penn State has a better shot to beat Miami than Indiana does because their defense is a, quite a bit better. Because if you
Yeah,
look, both Indiana and Penn State both played and lost to Ohio State, but Penn State lost more respectably than Indiana did.
yeah.
So
I don't think Tennessee could beat Georgia. Or I mean, Tennessee could beat Oregon, but I think Georgia could beat Oregon.
I think Tennessee would have a shot against Oregon, but I agree. I think Georgia
Yeah,
probably.
yeah, you might be right because Dylan Sampson would probably have about the same equivalent as Genty.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they both have a pretty good defense. So I think that would
but
be a good game.
I think either or would be a good game just because it's a it's a little more of an even matchup in terms of both sides of the ball, quarterbacks, run games.
Like you said, the Oregon Georgia game would probably be pretty good. I feel like the Tennessee game that they would just have to play defense. But that would probably be a low scoring game just because Tennessee's not going to allow Oregon to just kind of go crazy on them. I wouldn't think so anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
But I don't know. Georgia just blew out Tennessee, so I really don't know. Um, I don't know if Boise can beat Ohio State.
I think they could.
I
They
I
just
don't know.
they would have to have the ball last though.
I feel like Ohio State's defense is really good. I don't know what Genty would do to that because they're going to load the box.
Oregon loaded the box and he gave them 200 yards on the
Yeah,
ground.
but Ohio State's defense is a little bit better than Oregon's
That
right now. Right now,
I don't know about that
they
one.
played early. They played early. They're a different team now.
Doesn't matter. I mean, the way that I look at it, those are still all the same players. Yeah, they're a lot more of you know, a mesh group now because they're playing all together and whatnot. It's not early in the season, but he still gave him 200 yards on the ground.
Yeah, he
I
did.
mean, and they knew what they were doing. They literally had to kick a field goal to beat them. So, and with Oregon and Ohio State, they both gave each other 30 plus points. So if you can move the ball against either team, you can score. I mean, Boise State put up 24 on Oregon, and their defense is really good. Ohio State's defense is really good, but that doesn't mean that Boise State wouldn't be able to go toe for toe with them. I mean, they did it with Oregon. Who says they can't do it with Ohio State?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And Oregon beat Ohio State, so yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they obviously it would be a better matchup for Boise with
And
Arizona.
it's you got to factor in the neutral site too. It's not a home game for either team, so it's fair advantage across the board.
Oh yeah, the top four there. It's the so yeah. They Arizona would play at Ohio State, Tennessee would play at Georgia, Indiana would play at Penn State, and SMU would play at Notre Dame. And then you got the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl and those bowls here. That's where they're going to play, right?
I think that's the yeah. I think
I think
those
that's
are the
right.
four quarterfinal games, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
pretty sure those four games are neutral sites.
so just for the sake of it, we'll say Ohio State beats Boise State. We'll say Georgia loses to Oregon. We'll say let's say Penn State beats Miami, and then we'll say Texas obviously moves to the semis. So you'd have like Penn State, Texas, and Oregon and Ohio State for the third time in a season. That's if the bracket kind of falls in the. We're kind of speculating off of this right here, not obviously what the bracket's gonna look like in 2 weeks. So in this bracket, Oregon and Ohio State would see each other a third time. So who would you
Yeah.
take in that third matchup?
Who wins the second time?
Well, we don't know that yet because they play in the conference championship. You would expect Oregon to win because I mean they beat them the first time. It's hard to beat a team twice, but Oregon has looked the part in every facet of the game. To be the favorite to win a national championship.
It'd be hard to beat somebody three times.
That's what I said. It's tough to beat a team twice already, but three times is insane. So, um,
Um, man, I'd probably pick Ohio State. Man, it'd be tough to beat somebody three times.
I'd probably still roll Oregon just because I mean
Because I mean,
they've
you're pretty much played them back to back.
basically, yeah. I mean, in a sense, I'd probably still roll Oregon in that. Just
Okay, so then
like I
you got
said,
Oregon. Okay, so do you think Penn State would beat Miami?
well, yeah. No, I was saying, just for the sake of it, let's just say Penn State beats or upsets or
Beat
Miami or whatever. I would
okay,
expect them to do that anyways, because like we both said, Miami's defense is they're not great. They're a shootout team. They got to win and not make mistakes.
yeah.
So would Penn
Well,
State beat Texas?
no,
No. So that means you'd have like a Texas Oregon national championship from this bracket based on how we're spectating it. Y'all might see it a little different, but how we're talking about it right now, it'd be Oregon and Texas in the national championship. I think that'd be a pretty nice national championship. Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
But
I think it'd be pretty good.
I
And
think
then
Texas
again,
would,
I mean, we could be sitting here looking at a yeah, we could be sitting here with Boise SMU in the national championship.
yeah. I mean, honestly, it's really up for grabs. Like I said, I think it's gonna go to whoever the hottest team is coming in. Because once you get really hot and you're going into that playoff atmosphere, it just that momentum just continues and it can carry you all the way to the national championship. And then you can next thing you know, you're hoisting the national championship trophy.
Yeah,
But
I mean, the only problem is this bye week. That could be a killer because you want to come in with momentum. Say for instance, I don't know, Arizona State upsets Ohio State. They got a lot of momentum. That's a big game for them. They're coming into they're gonna go wherever Boise and them play at. Boise's been sitting at home for the week. Obviously they're gonna be rested, so that helps too. But some teams when you're on a roll and you take a week off, you get beat.
yeah, you're
Look at
right.
Ole Miss. They beat Georgia, had a bye week, and then got beat by Florida.
Yeah, that's real. It happens.
So
So
yeah, like you said, whoever comes in hot, like we said before, some of these teams are as long as Tennessee's fine. They just got to beat Vandy Saturday. They're fine. Now Georgia's in a little bit different of a situation because they are locked into the SEC championship game, so they can't afford to lose.
okay, so let me ask you this: are there any teams you see that we're looking at right now that aren't going to be here in 2 weeks?
I wouldn't be shocked if Miami wasn't here.
Yeah, I mean they do still got to go and play in the ACC.
Yeah, they got to play SMU,
Yeah, they got to play in the ACC
so that's
championship,
going to
and they
change.
who's their last game of the season against?
Miami,
Yeah,
Syracuse.
yeah. Then that honestly, you can't really count Syracuse out of that game. I mean, they got just as good a chance to beat them as anybody else has all season.
Yeah, their
So
defense is just pretty bad. So
yeah, I think if I had to say there's a team that I won't expect to be here, I'm probably gonna say uh
I'm probably going to say Georgia just because they still got to win. They have to win the
they
SEC to
have to
make
win
it
the SEC to stay in. Yeah, so yeah, no, you're right.
because Tennessee's fine. They just got to beat Vandy Saturday. Now they'll be fine. Ohio State, obviously, they've got to win. They're going to have
Yeah,
to play Oregon in the Big Ten championship, so they have to win.
but even if they lose, they're still gonna go.
I don't know if they will or not.
They will. That's the issue though, because they'll be ranked high enough in the play like the regular playoff ranking and not the bracket to where they still get put in the bracket, but they'll probably just be lower. And then somebody else who's on the outside looking in and trying to get in, Ohio State's probably gonna bump them out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but that's the way these rankings are set up. They're kind of weird.
So pretty much the only team that's really in jeopardy here is Georgia. To be honest, everybody else has like one or two losses. Well, Notre Dame can't. Well, they don't play in the conference.
Yeah, so Notre Dame's
Yeah,
in
so
there no
pretty
matter
much
what.
Georgia's on the chopping block because them and Arizona State, I think, are the only two teams that probably won't be here because Arizona State will probably have to win
So
the Big 12.
since Notre Dame doesn't play in a conference, you think all the conference champions, jump them in the ranking since they're idle, or no?
I think they'll stay where they are.
I don't know. I
They're
think they're
going to
gonna.
stay in this first round. They're not going to jump anywhere.
Yeah, no, I know they're gonna stay in the first round, but I'm talking
So
like
you're
as far
saying,
as
so you're saying, like, say Texas A&M beats Texas. You're saying that Texas A&M is going to could jump Notre Dame here, and they keep Texas in. Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm talking about like conference championship wise. So let's say Texas and Georgia, playing the conference championship or whatever, and
Okay.
not even them because that's too high. I'm trying to think of like let's say let
Yeah,
me see who.
So let's say Texas A&M beats Texas Saturday. The Texas is not going to play in the SEC championship. It's going to be A&M. That game determines it.
Yeah,
Whoever the winner of that. So if Texas A&M beats Texas,
yeah,
and say they beat, well, no, because they'd have to beat Georgia. Okay, so there we go. So say they beat Texas, so that gives Texas its second loss.
yeah.
Obviously, Texas is not going to be in this two spot.
Nah, they probably fall a little further down, maybe to like a.
And then say Texas A&M beat Georgia.
They probably would. That would probably bump them all the way up to like at least a two, because you got to think that's two of the highest ranked teams on the bracket at what 3 and 7. So if you beat them in
So
back to
that would
back
not.
weeks,
So that would knock Georgia out.
more than likely, yeah. Because Texas A&M is down there at 20. So I mean, if
Yeah,
both
Texas
teams
A&M might
lose,
not have been a very good.
no. I think it was perfect. I think it was a. I see what you did there. Basically, we're saying like if they beat Texas first at the end of the season and then win the SEC somehow, I think they probably jump all the way up to that number 2 spot, in all honesty, because you got to think, sitting at 20 and you beat the number 3 and the number 7 team, or wherever Georgia moves up to after Texas falls, then you probably are going to be one of the higher ranked teams out of those Power Four conferences. So you're going to get a spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Notre Dame will be fine. I mean,
Like I said, I just think that you're not playing in a conference championship, so you're idle. So that means whoever wins their conference championships, if they're not already ranked ahead of you, they should jump you.
say Miami gets beat by Syracuse, and then Miami beat SMU in the ACC championship game. Then what happens?
Miami more than
Like you
likely
said,
would.
that might kick out some teams. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if Miami were to lose at the end of the season and then beat SMU, they probably still go to the playoffs, but they'd be like a super low seed, and that bump SMU out of the playoff race.
So do you put Clemson in there?
I think by default, if Clemson were to win out, then they would automatically somehow slide in because they're going to move up in the ranking.
Yeah. Yeah, this weekend could be chaos for a lot of teams.
I
Georgia
expect it to
plays
be.
Georgia Tech, so that probably won't. That could be a good game. You never know. This is the weekend right here of college football where crazy things happen. It's your biggest rivals. Michigan could beat Ohio State. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, with a 12-team playoff race now, every week, especially on the back end, is crucial because obviously in the FBS it was like the top 2 teams. So normally, if you were like right there in the area of like the top 5 or so, you were really trying to play for something towards the end of the year in conference championship week. Now you got 12 spots. So for the ones who aren't in the conference championship, you're just hoping for a lot of chaos. Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, you're
Personally, I don't
really,
think Alabama even deserves a chance to be here.
I
You
mean,
just got
you could,
blowed
you
out
could, you could say
by
that, but I
Oklahoma.
mean, look at the rest of the field. You tell me the rest of the field is better than number 13 Alabama.
I mean, you got blowed out by two pretty bad teams.
That's not what I'm saying though. You tell me that every team after Alabama on the top 25 right now that we're looking at is better than them.
Let's look.
Colorado, is Colorado better than 13 Alabama? Sitting at
No, they're
25.
not even. They don't even deserve to be in the top 25. They
What
suck.
about
Every
what
time they
about
play
what about
somebody good, they get blowed out.
what about Kansas State?
They're not even ranked.
They're 24.
Oh no, they suck.
What about Illinois?
I don't know. I've never seen. I've never watched them play.
UNLV is 22. How about them?
Could be. I don't know. Never seen them play.
Oh my goodness.
I'd like to see.
Missouri.
I'd like to see. I'd like to see Ole Miss play Alabama. I think that'd be good. Clemson is Clemson better? I don't know. We'll see how good Clemson is Saturday when they play South Carolina. South Carolina's got a good defense.
So what about Missouri? Is Missouri better? Obviously not, because their quarterback is in and out of the lineup right now. He
I'm
hurt.
about to
He's
say I don't
injured.
even think. I don't even think he's playing anymore.
It's hard to say whether or not Texas A&M is because they haven't played each other. We really don't know. Texas A&M is a good football team though, so I got to give it to them. BYU, obviously, I don't even think BYU should be at number 19 because they didn't lost 2 weeks in a row. Iowa
Yeah.
State, Iowa State. I mean, again, they're one of those teams that's really they're about to go to their conference championship if they went out. So, I mean, that's that's debatable. Tulane, absolutely not. Arizona
Oh,
State,
they are. They said Tulane might make a run here.
I mean, they could somehow make a run and get in there. You never know. I mean, it's the higher you're ranked, and if you're a conference champion, you have a shot to get in there. But they play in the American Conference, so I think it's going to be tougher for them to put somebody in, unless, like I said, complete chaos happens. So, like I said, maybe Alabama doesn't deserve to be at number 13, but the rest of the field, looking at it, I feel like that's a fine spot for them because everybody else that's after them, you can't really say that they did anything to be where Alabama is.
I think if Georgia gets beat, they should still go then.
I mean, they could. I would take them. I would
I don't
probably take
know.
them
I don't
over. I
know.
would take them over Alabama, and I'm an Alabama fan, but I would take Georgia over Alabama with 3 losses because obviously, one of the losses was to Alabama, but that was early on in the season. It's a completely different. They're completely
As
different teams
as
now.
tough as it would be to make an argument, people are not going to like it. SEC is going to get SEC. There'll be a three. They'll put a 3-loss SEC team in here just because of the competition. I mean, would you rather have a 3-loss SEC team that lost to the top 5 teams, or
So, if there is a 3-loss team,
Indiana?
who do you think is going to be?
I don't know. If Georgia loses in the SEC championship, it would just depend on how they lost. They've already beat Texas once.
Yeah. So you think if they lost in the SEC
So if Texas
championship?
beat them, I think you can make an argument depending on what the score looked like.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I mean, regardless of what the score looks like, I
It's
think if they
hard
lose in
because you
the
could argue it's hard to beat somebody. You've already beat them once.
yeah, I
It's
mean,
hard to beat them twice.
if they were to lose, I think they
They
could
would need
still go.
somebody else to lose. They would need so they're sitting at 8. They would need Arizona State to lose, or SMU or Miami. They would need Miami to beat SMU. Something like
I,
that. They would need help if they lost.
I mean, in all honesty, the whole bracket and rankings is really crazy, especially going into the last week and
But I
conference
see your
championship.
argument. Say Tulane wins out. They won their conference, and maybe that's a push for. I'm not saying you kick Notre Dame out, but they didn't win their conference. They don't have a conference. They don't play in anything. So,
I
do
think
you
Notre
make
Dame
the
will.
argument to Notre Dame? Hey, Notre Dame, you need to join a conference because it's tough for us to keep Tulane or places people like that out of it.
Yeah, but I mean, if that were to happen, naturally somebody else is going to get bumped out outside of Notre Dame. I'm not saying Notre Dame needs to get kicked out completely of the playoffs, but
How
I
many
just
losses
think
does
that
Texas A&M have? 3.
yeah, I think they have. Or is
Yeah,
it 2?
they lost to
Oh, Auburn. I forgot about Auburn. It's Auburn. Uh,
Ole Miss.
yeah,
No, not Ole
Auburn.
Miss. Not Ole Miss. South Carolina.
There you go.
Is
Auburn,
it
South
just 2?
Carolina. It might be.
Hold on, I'm gonna fact check this real quick. No, they have 3. I don't know who the. My mind went blank. They lost to
Yeah, mine did
Auburn,
too.
South Carolina, and Notre Dame.
Oh yeah, because that was the
That was the
beginning. That was the
first
first
game of
game
the
of the
year.
season.
I forgot they
Keep
played
forgetting
Notre
about
Dame.
that one. Uh, like I said, it's just this another week, potential chaos. Looking
Yeah,
forward
they'd be
to it.
4 losses. There's no chance they would make it.
Nah, no, no. But yeah, no, that's pretty much all I got for this bracket this week.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I got too.
Well, that wraps up our third. This is the third. Yeah, this third installment, right, for the rankings.
Yep, sure is.
Yeah, so that wraps up the third installment for the rankings. Obviously, same time next week. As soon as the rankings drop, we'll have something for y'all. And as always, we appreciate everybody that's listening in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.